Welcome, and we thank you for joining us today on Speaking of Spirits as we discuss that voodoo that you do. All right, well, thank you for joining us today on Speaking of Spirits. Our topic today, we're going to be talking about voodoo, the religious belief system, structure, everything around some voodoo today. So it's going to be a fun topic.
Yeah.
So, myself, Mark, and Colleen here today. Tim is off today. He's been working like 9,000 hours this week. Here in Southeast Idaho, we had the Eastern Idaho State Fair, which that's a huge thing for us. And Tim has mentioned that his main day job is that he is the pit master for a barbecue truck here in the area. And they were working the fair this week, and I think he's got like, I don't know, some horrible amount of hours this last week.
Yeah.
So he is taking a well-deserved day off today. So
Absolutely. When did the fair end, Mark? Was it today or yesterday? I don't even know.
Yesterday was the last day.
Okay. Tells you how
So
much I was involved with the fair this year.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how much work Tim was doing because every post I saw was a different dessert. Did you notice that?
I did, yes.
So Tim, yeah, good. Take a few days off, and I'm sure that came right from the boss, the head of the household. She said he's not doing anything for the next couple of days. So,
well, at least anything outside of the house. Yeah, I'm sure he's busy. So.
Yeah.
Good. But anyway, have a good time. Take some time off, Tim. Recovered. We miss you. So. But today we're going to be talking about voodoo, and it's interesting. One of the first things you learn about voodoo is that it's not nearly as dark, ominous, scary, intimidating as it is often portrayed in a lot of books and movies, TV series, and things like that. So voodoo is actually a very common religion in certain parts of the world. And one of the interesting things that I found about it is that it seems to be very, very deeply connected to ancestors. Voodoo comes from, well, if I pronounce this right, Vodun is another word that's used for voodoo, and that means spirit. Mm-hmm. And it generally means spirit ancestors, but it was interesting because not only is it the ancestors themselves, so people are working with their spirit ancestors, but they also tend to work with the same deities that their ancestors worked with. They tend to believe the same gods, goddesses, entities that existed that their ancestors worshipped and worked with.
Yeah. So one of the things that I thought was interesting is I'd always heard of Haitian voodoo, right? And you're going to talk more on the African side of voodoo, where I think voodoo actually stemmed from. And then Haitian also has very similar practices.
It does. And what I could, and I'll let you cover this, but what I could figure out is that the Haitian voodoo actually came from the African voodoo.
Right.
During the period when they were bringing the slaves across, and a lot of them ended up in Haiti, they brought the African voodoo with them, but then they added some things to it.
Yes, they did.
Creating kind of a different thing there in Haiti and going kind of a slightly different direction with it. But.
Yeah, so in Haiti, the saying goes, there's 70% of the people are Catholic, 30% are Protestant, and 100% are Voodoo. So Haitian Voodoo was born from a blending of Catholicism and Western and Central African spirituality.
Okay.
Very interesting.
That's an interesting combination of beliefs for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In Haiti, they actually banned voodoo from 1835 to 1987. The Haitian government banned it.
Wow.
Under laws that prohibited ritualistic practices, which is interesting because Catholicism has a lot of ritualistic practices.
It does.
Right?
Yes.
Right. So the Catholic Church forced Haiti to stop practicing voodoo and adopt Roman Catholicism as its official religion. But almost everybody in Haiti, even the elite, practiced voodoo, even if they did it secretly. So over many, many years, Catholics and Protestants launched attacks on the voodoo places of worship and their religious icons. So, yeah, now I don't know. What about in Africa?
So, Africa, what I could find is that they've never had anything like that going on. I'm still kind of working on that, trying to ban how you would even go about trying to ban that.
Right.
You know, something with ritual, which is just about every spiritual belief in existence somewhere.
Yeah.
It has some type of ritual practice to it. How could you? Anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So kind of trying to wrap my mind around that.
Well, you know, look how much blood has been shed over religion throughout the centuries, right? So
true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that maybe bringing everybody into the fold of Catholicism in Haiti is not to make enemies on the podcast out there in the world, but a lot of it has to do with money, right? So
it does. A lot of it has to, money, and you could also argue some type of control or power, whether it be political influence, something along those lines too.
Right.
You know, so I mean, there could be a couple of reasons for it, but yeah, that's just kind of, and especially so recently too. I didn't realize that it was banned as recently as 87.
Yeah, I didn't either. When I started reading about it, I thought, well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That is very recent. So one of the things that, you know, movies and literature, fiction, of course, they talk about, like you said, voodoo as being so dark and so mysterious. And there's a dark aspect to voodoo. There is definitely a dark aspect, but most
exists,
of it,
yes,
sure. But most of it focuses on the mind, on the flesh. So Eastern spirituality focuses on the mind, but voodoo focuses on the flesh. So they believe to reach kind of a higher state of transcendence, they dance. Music is a huge part of voodoo. Dance, and they enter kind of a trance-like state when they're dancing. It sounds actually beautiful, not dark to me.
And in the African voodoo that I looked up, they do a lot of trance work when they do their ceremonies, but going into a trance, they also, a lot of times this is an opportunity, they allow themselves to allow other entities to enter their body. So they're allowing themselves to be possessed. But again, this is usually done for healing purposes. In the African, the voodoo priest or priestess, whoever was, I think, was also the local medicine man, the local doctor, the person who healed people with physical ailments.
Mm-hmm.
And voodoo in Africa actually came from the ability to heal.
Okay.
So a lot of the stories and that I found, where African voodoo came from is it came from a hunter who was out hunting, and he kind of ran across a mound of earth that had spirit in it, and the spirit told him how to fix his wife's. Told the hunter how the hunter could fix his wife's leprosy, and gave him certain leaves. And the hunter took the leaves back and cured his wife with these leaves. And then the story got out, and so more and more people were coming. And instead of the hunter himself doing it, he would take people with afflictions to the mound. And so that they themselves could tell the mound what their afflictions were. And then they would get, whatever they needed to fix whatever was ailing them. And
now
so it kind of started with a healing, aspect to it. So.
That's really interesting. In your research, was it more male dominated? Because Haitian seems to be more female dominated.
Interestingly, in mine, I don't get a lot of difference between male or female. They don't really emphasize that a lot.
Yeah, from what I was reading on the Haitian portion of it, most of the high practitioners are women. So I thought that was kind of an interesting take, and I don't know why there would be that. Almost everything I read seemed to spin more towards the female being the high priestess of voodoo. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see much of that centered towards men. I don't know why. Oh. So, of course, the Haitian voodoo tends to be the voodoo that is practiced in the United States. Can't speak, because of the Haitian population that have immigrated here, and in particularly the French Quarter, New Orleans. It's a lot of Haitian, a lot of voodoo's practiced there. And then you get to, Marie Laveau, of course. I had to go see her tomb when I was there, and
cool.
Leave the offering for Marie Laveau. It's said the bad luck if you don't leave an offering for her when you visit her. But her story in itself is a little interesting in that she married, I believe, a white man, and within not so many hours after their wedding, he was dead. So she was a beautiful woman, and she had a lot of suitors, and it made it sound like she married for wealth, which of course, especially back in those days, that the life was hard. So if you could marry for money, great. But I don't know how much actual voodoo practicing she did. So everything was kind of really sketchy about reading her history. I don't know if that was by design, like they didn't really want to talk about her too much. But so it's still, I think, in the French Quarter, it makes sense that you have this blend of French Catholicism and Haitian voodoo down there.
Yeah, that would make sense. Well, especially down there in New Orleans, because there is a Haitian population there.
Mm-hmm.
So that would make sense. But I think also then, as the voodoo was left, they brought the slaves over from Africa. Some of them got off the boat in Haiti. Some of them came to the United States there through New Orleans. So it just kind of naturally, and then also New Orleans had a very strong Catholic influence too.
Yes.
So I think those two, the Haitian and the New Orleans American version, probably just kind of developed side by side. for a lot of reasons, with a little bit of the same people involved, a little bit of the same cultures crossing over. I can see where they could develop, side by side with each other.
So,
not the same way. So
when you're looking at the similarities between Roman Catholicism and Voodoo, both believe in like a supreme being, and both believe in the existence of invisible evil spirits or demons, and they both believe in an afterlife. And then each religion focuses its ceremonies around a central point, like an altar, or in Voodoo, it's a pole or a tree. It's an altar, and they are very symbolic. Everything is ritual. There's rituals of sacrifice, consumption of flesh and blood. Now, of course, it's all symbolic. I don't know if in traditional Haitian Voodoo they still do sacrifices. There was a lot of animals that are sacrificed during, or it used to be anyway, during the ceremonies. I'm not sure if that still happens.
In the African Voodoo that I researched, they use a lot of specifically chickens, but they use them for a cleansing type of thing. They tend to use the chickens to cleanse whoever or whatever they're working on.
So they're sacrificed and the blood's used?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think in the African Voodoo, there was a little bit of it that spilled over into Haitian, and there's something called Loa.
Loa, yes.
Loa. And that resembles the Christian saints, right? So these are the Haitian, like gods?
Yes. Or gods and goddesses, deities that existed, yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because I couldn't figure out what came first. Was it Catholicism or was it Voodoo? What's actually older, and who stole what from whom? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so many similarities. So in a Legba is an old man, and he is said to open the gates between earth and the world of Loa, like St. Peter traditionally opens the gates to heaven. So what was the earlier religion? That's where I couldn't find that information.
Well, I would go back probably with the Voodoo. I think the Voodoo's been around a lot longer than Catholicism has. Especially with the African Voodoo, because the African Voodoo goes way back.
Okay.
So I couldn't find any specific time frame or dates, but it's been around for multiple generations.
So there's an author, I was reading some of his work, and his name is Corbett, and he said that there's a lot of differences in the Western world, right? And people in Haitian people. So Westerners tend to believe in free will and personal choice, right? That's all what we're about. But
we're big on that. Yes.
Right. But Haitian people don't believe in that. They believe that the Loa are their spiritual guides, and that they determine the Haitian lives to what he said, an astonishing degree. And they're always present in great numbers. There may be 2 people in a room, but there may be 20 Loa. So people who do practice at least Haitian Voodoo are very much believe that their life path is predetermined by the Loa. Or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Loa.
Yeah, Loa sounds about right.
Yeah.
That would sound very similar to a lot of the African Voodoo that I studied too. Is that people will, they firmly believe that the spirits can influence, direct a person's life.
Okay. So the the temples in Haiti, and then there's some here in North America, they're marked by a sacred, like a center pole. And then they used, I believe they used blood at one time, but now they use cornmeal, and they make drawings. They trace drawings on the ground around the pole to call in individual spirits. So they also, on an offering, they offer food and drink on their altar. They sing and drum and dance to invoke particular spirits to become manifest in one of the practitioners. So the spirit is said to mount or ride a practitioner as one may ride a horse. The movements, the voice, and the words of one so mounted are understood to be those of the spirit. In this way, the Loa communicates with the human beings. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. That sounds very similar to a lot of the African styles too, in that they will have a ceremony and a specific individual, as I said earlier, will invite a spirit into them, to kind of take over. And while that spirit is in, they can actually heal other people. They can bring messages, they can communicate. But yeah, as you pointed out, I think everybody recognizes that it's not that individual, it is that spirit working through that individual at that time. Mm-hmm. So that seems to be a fairly common belief across all the voodoos here.
So there is a dark side, right? We brought that up earlier, and so I was really curious to know what's the dark side. Some of, and I'm not sure I'm saying this right, it's called the Haitian Duvalier dynasty. Mm-hmm. They're suspected in doing mass ritual sacrifices of humans. Yeah, so I don't know how much proof there is to this, or if this was just a notion that's kind of getting some traction to it, but and there's this practice of zombification, zombies. So the zombies, and I'm a little hazy on exactly what this is, but it seems to be like reanimation of the body, like we have in our movies today, right? All these zombie movies. And the zombies carry out the messages, and I'm not sure of whom, if it's the high priestess or the Loa. The zombies are seen as a creation of voodoo spiritualism. As early as the 17th century, Haitians spoke of zombies in their practice. They were corpses reanimated by shaman and voodoo priests and bewitched to carry out nefarious tasks, is what I've read. I have a very dear friend of mine who spent some time in Haiti, and she absolutely swears on her life that she has run across one of these creatures. And she's not, she's very Christian lady. She's not one to believe in any of this stuff, but she said it scared her really intensely. Yeah. And so it's kind of interesting that even today, somebody has run across a being where they think this is absolutely a reanimated corpse. So kind of interesting.
Interesting. That is interesting. But then it also kind of follows the, somewhat of the beliefs of the voodoo that, they do rituals, they do invite entities into them. They do allow possessions. So it wouldn't take a huge leap of faith just to say then that, after somebody appears to have passed away, to have an entity take over the body is not that big of a leap of faith from there. So,
right. So there's also Now, I know I'm going to slaughter this word. The most important item in voodoo magic is the Nganga. 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 And it's a magical cauldron containing soil from a graveyard, bird skeletons, animal bones, herbs, and animal skulls. It's something that it's, I guess, vital to their magic. And another powerful ritual object is the voodoo doll. And it's used for a range of magical influences. Now, something I have to tell you, which I found really interesting, about 3 years ago or so, I was visiting a friend in the hospital here in Pocatello, and in the gift shop, they were selling voodoo dolls. But they called them, of course, something different, and I took pictures of them, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but they were actually voodoo dolls. And I thought, how interesting is that? Because we are such a highly Mormon area that in our little gift shop, run by a little old lady, she was selling these dolls out of a basket. You can name them what you want, but they were voodoo dolls.
They were voodoo dolls.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't. I do have a friend who lives in South Carolina, and the home that she owns is said to have been owned by a voodoo practitioner. She says that is probably one of the most haunted homes she's ever been in her life. The sounds, the smells, the hauntings in that house is 24/7. She said it never stops.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and when I was thinking about trying to do like the numbers, like how many voodoo practitioners do we have in the United States? Hard to determine, but they believe there's let's see, there's over 450,000 practitioners just in New York City alone. In millions, 60 million practice voodoo worldwide, but I don't know how many in the United States, but if there's that many just in New York City, there's got to be several million here in the United States, people who practice this religion.
Well, it would be, I guess also, how would you define that? Is it people to just follow the religion, or active priests and priestesses? Actually,
I don't know. They call it practice voodoo. They said today an estimated 60 million people practice voodoo. So I don't know. In Africa, did you run across any information on zombies? Any of the dark?
Did not run across the zombies. And in fact, throughout, I was trying to think while you were talking, throughout most of my history, the zombie phenomenon, I believe, has just about always been associated with the islands, Haiti, and through the islands there.
Okay.
Come to think of it, I don't ever recall the African voodoo in any of the stories or anything I've ever heard having a zombie-like entity in there. So most of the zombie lore that I have heard does come from the islands.
Yeah,
down there through the Caribbean. So,
well, I would love to talk to somebody who actually practices this.
Yes.
If there would be anybody in our audience who would feel like reaching out to us through our Facebook page, Pocatello Paranormal Research, just if anything else, to maybe talk about some of the misconceptions that we have about voodoo. It's I just think that Hollywood has gotten a hold of something that's probably very, very beautiful and has butchered the meaning of it in every way imaginable.
Very true.
Yeah.
One of the stories of African voodoo that I did run across is that it involved a king of, I guess, probably just like a small community there in Africa, who was afraid for his life. So he escaped into the forest. And while in the forest, the pythons protected him. He believes the pythons protected him from whoever was trying to take his life. And so when he came back, he told the story. And he told that the pythons are their friends, because they protected him and protected his life. So a lot of the temples in Africa, voodoo temples, have symbols of snakes in them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them actually have a lot of snakes in the temples themselves.
Interesting.
And so they are very much affiliated with the snake, which of course is a lot of times portrayed as the serpent. So of course, if you're familiar with the creation story in Christianity with Adam and Eve and what the serpent played there, then that would automatically put, if you're following that Christian story of creation, then of course you see the serpent in a completely different light. So anybody that would lift up or worship the serpent or protect the serpent is going to almost automatically get kind of a different look at it, than what was intended. So I think throughout things like that have led to voodoo being very miscategorized throughout a lot of things, especially by people who may be deeply into the Christian faith.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, I would, I love for people to do their own research and also to have a really high BS filter when they're looking at stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because when in my research, I also bookmarked a bunch of pages on the internet of people selling black voodoo magic spells. So, and just while I do believe that there are people who can practice different magic, I don't think that a lot of people who probably have websites are practicing a lot of magic. So maybe they are. Be very careful who you give your money to, guys, when you're looking at some of this stuff, and maybe there are cures, magical cures of different ailments, but I haven't seen it yet. Yeah. One of
the interesting things about voodoo to me is voodoo also seems to be very it works very much, I think, on the deep psyche of the practitioner too. Voodoo tends to do a lot of things that are very deeply psychological. And the more I study, the more I research, I'm becoming very convinced of the power of the human mind.
Oh, yes.
And I think when the human mind truly believes something, then it finds everything it needs to support that belief.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of stuff in voodoo, I think, is that you convince people that they truly believe that they're going to heal from whatever they're doing.
Yes, and I do believe that. One of the things that worries me is the people who ask for money.
Yes.
And while I do believe that people should be paid if they're performing a service, there's a lot of scam artists out here in just about everything. It's not just voodoo; it's everywhere. And
that is true.
The power of the mind is absolutely. I do believe that if you feel like you can be cured, you can probably be cured. There are some illnesses that you can slow down the progression of it based on your attitude, right? But there's still illnesses that I don't believe that a ritual can heal it. Maybe I'm just not there yet in my belief system. I don't know. I just see a lot of charlatans out there.
I totally understand that. I totally understand where you're coming from on there. So, yeah, I do. Unfortunately, I think there's been a lot of charlatans involved with voodoo throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that voodoo kind of has to deal with. It's just one of the areas that, unfortunately, throughout history has had a lot of charlatans, a lot of questionable characters claiming to use it in appropriate ways, just, for money. So,
yeah,
I acknowledge that is, well, probably fairly common out there.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was an interesting topic. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about this. I know that a lot of the sorry, my hound dog and my donkey's going off. Oh my God. When I was in New Orleans, I really would like to have seen a ritual, but that's very closed doors. I mean, it's not something that, it's not like you can walk into the Catholic Church and just be a guest. I've done that. And like, unlike what some people think they're gonna, like I was gonna just catch on fire and burn to the ground. No, it did not happen. But I don't know why there was such a closed door policy on when I was in the French Quarter about trying to just witness or observe one of their rituals. But it wasn't, I could not get into the door anywhere. Maybe I just didn't have the right person with me to help me get in. But
that
I
would
love.
Be, but
yeah.
It probably also takes a little bit of faith, though, too. Or not. Let me take that back. Not necessarily faith, but maybe once they understand who you are and why you're there and why you want to get in. There's a term that's used a lot around here, especially with the Mormon faith. They say, well, our stuff isn't secret, but it's very sacred, which means it's very important to them. And so therefore they really limit who they allow to see those ceremonies.
I don't know. To me, it's like, if you want to bring people, I can kind of understand that. But if you want to bring people into the fold of whatever religion you're practicing, I would think being more open and honest about what you're doing, no matter what it is, I think would be more welcoming. But I mean, I understand it on one side, but on the other side, to me, you could walk into any Catholic church, any Protestant church, any just non-denominational church, and it's open and welcoming, and they love to have you as a guest. So it's really hard to comprehend that secretive part for me.
Yeah, I guess I can kind of understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say to a point, though, I mean, yes, there are ceremonies in which you can just walk in and go to, and experience. But at the same time, if you're brand new and you've never really been there before, you're not going to be allowed into the financial meeting for the church.
No, but.
So, I mean, there's always going to be some things that, they're going to be. And that's
sure.
Tough,
but I'm talking about.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, you can't just walk into the temple unless, you know what I mean? Like, I know people who are no longer of the Mormon faith who are not allowed into a temple anymore. No, not even to see their own daughter get married.
Mm-hmm.
So that, And I'm not just busting on Mormonism here. I'm just saying that I think a little more being welcome goes a long way to bringing people either back to or into whatever religion you're practicing, making people feel welcome.
Yes.
So, of course, everywhere I went in New Orleans, nobody knew me. That's fine. I can understand that. And maybe if I was with somebody who was a member of, it would have been a different experience for me. I'd like to see it, not to ridicule it in any way. I'd love to experience one of the rituals because it fascinates me. Because I think all of my preconceived notions about what this religion is would be blown right out of the window if I could experience it. And also because I do believe that there are many gods, and their gods are no less important than someone else's gods. And I would like to see this, I would like to experience and watch and observe it. I think it would be fascinating.
I would agree. I think that'd be very interesting to go through a ceremony.
So one of the, and I think it's kind of an interesting movie. Of course, it was just fiction, but I believe it's centered around Haitian voodoo. Was the movie, and it's probably 20 years old now, called The Skeleton Key. Did you ever see it?
I don't think I ever saw that one.
It was a very good storyline. I think it was Goldie Hawn's daughter, whatever her name is. Anyway, she plays the lead character, and it's all centered around voodoo practices in the South and the storyline of that manipulation of people. Pretty interesting. Oh. Yeah. So it's one of my favorite movies.
I'll have to check that out now.
Yeah. Well, great topic, Mark. I enjoyed it.
It was a fun one. It was a fun one to research too.
Yeah.
So there's also a lot more that I want to check into on this. So
I'm going to be diving deeper. A topic that we can revisit for the fans of the podcast. The whole month of October, we've got some pretty dark topics coming your way that I think you'll enjoy.
Yes, it's the most wonderful time of the year.
Yes, it is.
I love it.
Yeah, Christmas, whatever. Halloween rules. Halloween rules.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. All right. Well, once again, everybody, thank you for joining us today on Speaking of Spirits. We're glad you're here. And hey, if we have any listeners in the New Orleans area who would claim to know us, let us know. We'd appreciate that. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on our next podcast.
Ha 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 ha.